First, I'll talk about the 2.0.1 release, which is the upcoming release and the first one after our big 2.0 update. And then I'll get into the results of our Epoch 9 governance. So the quarterly governance is the quarterly process that we use to decide how we should prioritize the resources of the foundation and which exchanges in a code base we should support, plans for the technical roadmap for the rest of the year. I know we've had this big 2.0 release, what we plan to kind of ship and our areas of focus for the remainder of 2024. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat. First, let's talk about the 2.0.1 release. Put in this diagram to kind of visualize what I think the new Hummingbot 2.0 is. When we had Hummingbot 1.0, it was really just the command line tool that people could run. Now that's only one instance. And now there's a whole framework you can use, deploy essentially an application, which helps you manage these individual instances. So this whole raw system, we think, is much more powerful than what we had before. So the way it works is you start with a deploy repo, which is just a GitHub repo that helps you manage everything. It uses Docker Compose to fetch the Docker images that it uses. So one of them, which is dashboard, which is like the front end interface. It's a Streamlit Python application. And then there's Backend API, which functions as backend. This is essentially like an API that kind of manages the individual Hummingbot instances, kind of helps, does things like credentials, manages their wallets, those kind of things. And then between the two, this allows you to kind of essentially just use dashboard to manage a whole fleet of different bots. And then all these instances, these can be running the v2 strategies. So each of these bots can essentially be kind of like one orchestrator that is running different strategies in each in a different controller. We think this setup just gives people a lot more power to deploy truly kind of like professional grade systems that where you're market making for, let's say, 10 pairs across, like 4 different exchanges, and for each pair you're running something like 3 or 4 bots, right? So that the number of kind of like individual strategies to manage quickly scales, which is why we think having this kind of systems kind of allows a single person to manage what before would take like a whole team of trade-off and back office people to manage. So hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what we're trying to do with Hummingbot. And also to make it work, there's also a few associated open source repos that kind of just help everything function. So for example, our website and our documentation site is open source. It's in this Hummingbot site repo. Fede recently open sourced this new repo we're pretty excited about called Quants-Lab, which is just a collection of research notebooks that utilize the Hummingbot library, because now that we've deployed Hummingbot as a library, you can kind of just import it into any Jupyter notebook and use it to fetch data and do other kinds of things. So we think that having kind of like an open source resource where you can use Hummingbot, but also other tools like Gecko Terminal or other API from crypto to like kind of help you formulate a strategy is a really powerful interface. So that's why we did Quants-Lab. And then finally, we've also had our previous repos like Gateway, which is our API middleware for DEXs, and our brokers repo, which is the community generated and created MQTT broker interface. Overall, I think Hummingbot's really turning into assemblage of community-owned open source repos. This new 2.0 framework, they'll all fit together better than they did in the past. Talking about 2.0.1, let me dive a bit more into the actual pull requests that we have coming up. One question from Matus: what is MQTT used for in brokers? So I'm probably not the best person explaining this. Maybe if Clip Nagi, who's the creator of the repo, or if Fede want to get on. But this brokers repo is an open source repo that helps Hummingbot communicate with other applications and with other bots, using this MQTT messaging protocol. I wanted to show off this pull request status board that we have on Hummingbot on GitHub, because this shows you the list of pull requests that we merge into the development branch on a real-time basis. So there's a few more under review, So we want to make sure we get some important fixes to candles in. I think we're also trying to get this DYDX perpetual connector merge in that's been in review for a while, and also I think this some improvements to the V2 strategy framework. But overall, I think we've already done quite a bit of work already, and in getting some important fixes into 2.0.1. For example, we added the authentication feature into dashboard. So if you are going to deploy dashboard on a server that's available to other people, we highly recommend you check out this feature. In addition, we also integrated the TELOS connector. Thank you to Enflux and their team for the contribution and for going through the governance process to get that in. We also improved some of the gateway connectors. So we've had some issues with our Uniswap connectors for a while. So now I think we fixed those, and we've added support for Base, Avalanche, and Binance Smart Chain. And I think there's also an upcoming library upgrade that Victor helped me work on that we're going to try to get into this release as well. And then finally, yeah, there's some more cleanup issues and some more kind of like bug fixes because 2.0 was a really we shipped a lot of features. That's when we kind of came out with dashboard and backend API and everything. So this cleanup release I think is important to address some of these issues and just overall try to harden the offering that we're providing to the community. You can expect this release out in the next 1 or 2 weeks. Some of these issues are probably not going to make it into this release. In terms of what's coming up in the future, planning to add a bit more support for DEXs because a lot of stuff we did in dashboard, we want to get out fast. So we really focused on order book exchanges and kind of like order book type strategies. But we do plan on kind of like improving both of the AMM executors like arbitrage and cross exchange market making, as well as creating an LP executor that works with the AMM v3 DEXs and hopefully getting some UI for those built into dashboard. So next, let me talk about the governance results that we just finished. So as a reminder, we use a quarterly process where HBOT holders vote for different exchanges in our code base. And that basically allocates a pool of HBOT tokens to the maintenance budget for those the top exchanges. And then for the ones that don't meet a certain number of HBOT votes, we remove them from the code base. So in Epoch 9, so the top vote getters, not surprised that these are the long-term exchanges that have always been at the top of the leaderboard. Number 1 was Binance, number 2, OKX, number 3, KuCoin, and number 4, Coinbase. So some of these exchanges do have kind of like pots already, but we do use the kind of allocations to address bugs that people report, as well as adding features like candles feed that are needed for the 2.0 release that are not there. So it's good that it shows the community, wants us to continue supporting the same top centralized exchanges that we did before, because hopefully these are the ones that people are using. So unfortunately, there were a few exchanges that did not meet the minimum 200,000 HBOT threshold. They were Bit.com, Femex, and HBTC. It's important to note that even though Hummingbot's an open source project, the presence of having connectors in the code base means that we do run tests for each connector, and also we have to accommodate having them in the UI, in the docs. And so there is an element of where the more exchanges that exist in the official code base, the more it may kind of like interfere or crowd out other exchanges. So we view this quarterly maintenance process as an important one in order to just maintain a well-groomed garden, so to speak. So moving on to DEX connectors, the top vote getters this epoch were number 1, Hyperliquid, number 2, XRP Ledger, number 3, Vega, and number 4, a new entrant, Balancer, made it into the mix. I think this clearly shows that Hyperliquid, which is also, I believe, is the top DEX right now generally. It tends to be the one that the community wants to focus on, and I think we're going to use budget from these pools to do more with Hyperliquid. Maybe create bounties for more potential strategies that people could run, or potentially adding candles feed for Hyperliquid. And of course, I'm glad to see the XRP Ledger is getting supported. For those, we actually do work with XRPL on a corporate level. So I'm glad to see that perhaps the folks are taking Botcamp with XRPL employees, and so hopefully they maybe they were the ones voting for Ripple. And then Vega and Balancer round out the path for DEX connectors. Unfortunately, we are going to be removing Perpetual Protocol connector in the code base. They've actually been in a code base for a long time. We've known them for a while, but it seems like the connector is not really being used. And I think also, to me, it's important to be cognizant about DEX connectors specifically because DEX connectors usually introduce some type of new SDK, and so those adding new SDKs is always a potential security risk. So the ability to remove them if they're not being used is actually a very important feature for DEX and chain connectors specifically. On the chain side, number one, XRPL, Ethereum number two, Avalanche number three, and Injective made it number four. To be honest, I'm actually not sure we should still have the Injective chain connector in the code base because we did add Injective as a club connector. However, if Injective is going to be adding AMMs or other types of exchanges on the chain, it actually wouldn't make sense to have a chain connector. But it's something that we'll work out with the Injective team. We will be removing Near this time, and so I think as part of that, we'll likely also probably remove the Ref connector because Ref is the only DEX on Near. I think that overall, I don't think the Near connector or the Ref connector is really being used either, and there are SDKs we're introducing to support them. So if no one's using them, we definitely want to remove them from the official code base. Okay, so that rounds out the governance process in terms of pool selection for Epoch 9. This is actually the Q3 process. We'll actually try to be more diligent about starting this process early on in Q4 and try to get this polling done in hopefully early October. Thank you all for everyone who participated in the polling process. I know the voting is always a bit of a pain, but I think that it's important for us to know which exchanges our community are using so that we can know which ones we should be supporting most. Because unfortunately, there's the scarce amounts of maintenance bandwidth that we have as an organization, and we want to make sure that they're applied to where the community wants to go. Okay, so up next, let's talk about meetups because I think that for us, we did after the pandemic, it was kind of hard coming out of our shell, so to speak. We actually used to do a lot of meetups before the pandemic. I think that we see events in San Francisco and in New York and so forth. But I'm really glad we did one in Austin at Consensus. Fede and I had a great time just meeting the folks in the community who attended and just hearing from you guys firsthand. What you want from Hummingbot and what you're working on as well. So with that in mind, we wanted to try to do more kind of like things to meet up. So in particular, we will be in Singapore in September for Token 2049 and Solana Breakpoint. To be honest, I'm not sure we're going to organize a dedicated event there, but we may try to work with some sponsor, like some friends, perhaps like DYDX or some other projects to just attach ourselves to one of their meetups or sponsor it or something. But we'll be in touch. But I do think there'll be some type of event in Singapore where we can kind of funnel the Hummingbot community, and you can meet me and Fede and everyone else in the community who might be attending to discuss all things bot related. Next, we're also going to be in Buenos Aires in October, and mostly for the Avalanche summit. They're having a conference there, but also we also want to float the idea of a Hummingbot specific meetup there. And the reason is because there's actually quite an active contingent of Hummingbot users in Buenos Aires. Fede lives in Argentina, but we also have a number of Coin Alpha employees as well as alumni who now work at Injective and perhaps other folks in the community as well. So what we're thinking about actually is some type of like 1 day, like a meetup of some kind. So this could be very casual, like could be a sort of a happy hour, but also could be like a longer thing where we have like people from the community giving like short talks or something like that and getting it recorded and published online. If you're local to Buenos Aires and you're interested in kind of helping plan this little like a meetup, please let me know. DM me on Discord. Okay, so that's pretty much it for in terms of like overall community updates. I wanted to pass it over to Fede to talk about the roadmap and kind of what's coming ahead.
Well, regarding to the roadmap, you can check the blog post of which are the things that we were discussing. In terms of executors, we added a few executors. We are the cross-change, the DCA. These two not yet, because we found that there is a lot of usability of these ones, and we decided to expand other parts of the bot before. Like, for example, the bot management system. So this wasn't available before in Hummingbot, and right now we have the Backend API, that is this service that you can orchestrate multiple bots. We have the dashboard, that is one tool that you can use to orchestrate and manage bots or communicate with the Backend API, plus create configs and so. The two things that are missing right now from this bot management system is going to be Condor, that is a Telegram bot that I already coded a few things. Like you can access to the active bots, you can start, stop, get the status. So it's like the integration is almost very is very advanced, like the integration that we have with this Condor Telegram bot. But for now, it's like we are not focusing too much. We have like an MVP regarding to this, and then we have these screeners and bot management stuff. Always is the thing that happens. Always we are open source. Is that we are very like community driven. So we try a bunch of different things. We work a lot in trying to improve and see what is worth for the community or not. I think that dashboard was really, really useful because now the people can visualize what the strategy looks like and what the strategy is actually doing. Because before it was just a raw YAML that you don't have any idea of how the bot is actually working. And now with the backtesting, you can visualize and understand how your strategy works. So I think that this was a very, very good improvement on the non-technical users and the technical users to understand the strategy with a very easy interface that you can use to generate configs, backtest, and deploy bots. And lately, after using it for a while and all stuff, I found that this is serving very, very well the type of user that is not too technical or technical that wants to deploy a few strategies that has already coded and already implemented. So for that, I have been doing a few improvements on the deploy repo, so you can add more pages, all that stuff. But personally, what I found more like a coder is like I don't care too much about the interfaces. I'm more like a coding coder than a person that wants to use UIs and all that stuff. So I decided to experiment a little bit with one repo that I'm going to show right now. That is called Quants-Lab. That will be more like a notebook-oriented experience to do research on the strategies that you want, to be able to plot graphs and reports easily just in the Jupyter Notebook cells, and to generate configs in a more automated way that you can backtest a bunch of configs and get the PNL of all those together to see what you want to deploy. More like automated way of doing research, generating configs, and deploy bots at scale. That is actually what you're going to do once you're confident with the initial steps. It's like this is all like for me like progressive over time. And it's like as you are getting more experience and more professional in this, first you are going to start with just Hummingbot, design a strategy and write that strategy. Then you're going to understand and try to visualize that strategy. Then you're going to understand what makes sense and what not for that type of strategy. And then you want to deploy that strategy at scale in millions of balls, not millions because there are not millions, but in a lot of markets at the same time. And at some point, you're going to get the intuition about how you need to generate the config or how you want to iterate that config. So at some point, you don't need to do one by one all the configs and test. It's much more better to have a bunch of configs, deploy them, and then based on the experience, start analyzing the performance and improve them over time. This is more like this is the current state that I am with my bots. It's more like a personal experience that I'm sharing here and why I'm developing this new repo. So, well, this Telegram bot, I also have a meeting today with Martin Coe, that is the original CTO, the real OG coder. He's working on a Telegram AI helper too. That actually my idea was to include it in this Condor at some point. But well, we're going to join forces and see what is his development right now. I know that his development is more oriented to integrate that directly with a Hummingbot instance. The approach that I trying to do with this was integrating this with the Backend API, that is a service that is orchestrating all these bots, because I think that this AI assistant shouldn't be too much attached to one bot itself. Will be more like an assistant for all your trading operations. So, for example, we'll be able to review the logs of the active bots, tell you if is there any issue, try to like be able to, based on commands, check the status of the current bots, stop instances and restart them just to clean up the instances. More like a general helper for all your trading operations. That is how I want to have an assistant with AI later on. But well, for now, I think that is much more powerful. These type of tools that you are going to be able to deploy bots at scale that before wasn't even possible. You can even see how the strategy behaves. It's just a raw YAML running paper trade mode and pray to God that the bot was going to do well. But well. Also, the other thing was in Haze the dashboard. The dashboard has a very big refactor. If you check the code of the dashboard, if you go to a previous commit from last year, you will see that I don't know, the dashboard is completely different from the last year. You can go back and see it. But yeah, it's a totally different repo. It's separating between backend and front end. All the backend functionalities that the dashboard has were abstracted in the backend API. So now I think that is a much more stable thing that you can build on top of it. That was mentioned here was that all this stuff is under one repo that is called deploy. So Hummingbot deploy will ultimately have all the things together that you need to deploy, manage bots, and everything. Soon we are going to talk about a little bit of scalability, because there are some exchanges like OKX that the API is very bad. You cannot run more than 5 or 7 pairs in the same machine. So we need to think about solutions to scale like Kubernetes, but I'm always trying to design and develop solutions that are very cost efficient, because I think that Kubernetes for users like you or me may be very expensive, and I don't want to pay that much if I can buy a machine or rent a machine that I pay, I don't know, $150 per year or $200 per year, and have a lot of machines like that and have a good way to orchestrate all of them. So I'm thinking about how to scale this solution to be cost effective for the people like us that are not working on a company that can invest I don't know, 5K per month or 3 or 4K per month in infrastructure. You want to invest, I don't know, 1K per year or 1.5K per year. So I'm trying to size and design the solution to be cost effective and friendly for us. Mainly because the project is open source. If I need to develop this for a company, yeah, I will do it with Kubernetes because the company will not have this issue of paying Kubernetes. But as it's open source, it's something to take into consideration when doing the design. So, well, in this deploy repo now, you have here the bots folder that you're going to have all the conf files, the controllers, the credentials, and so. And also you have these pages that here, the pages are the Streamlit pages that are rendering. So it's easy for you to add a new page. For example, the Bollinger V1, the PM Simple, or whatever page that you want. You can add it here and start visualizing your strategy directly in the deploy repo. But usually you are going to use the deploy repo to add all the services together in a server. And then I added back, as Mike mentioned, the credentials. So now you can put authentication on top of it. And there is also this permissions add by file that you can define which pages, in case that you add authentications, you can define what pages are public and what pages are private. So this will also help you. And if you want, this can work. This can be like an inspiration for you in case that you want to give like user permissions. So let's say that you have customers and you want to present or give access to some pages to certain customers. This can be an inspiration for you to create, I don't know, a section for, I don't know, token random 32. So you can add a section to token random 32. And when you give a user and a password for that company, you can just render the metrics or give access to the pages that are related to that customer. So, well, this is more like a way or yeah, an idea of how you can work with that. Going back to the roadmap, this is the number 3 is what I'm going to focus hard this part of the year. So basically, the first part of the year focused very hard on making the system friendly for a user, be able to deploy from the dashboard, be able to backtest. Now we need to add back the strategy performance that Drumman has pending because was before like it's like the post-mortem analysis of the bot, of the light bot. That's something that we need to work on. But for me, it will be very important working on this. Basically, I'm thinking about a re-architecture of the connectors to be much more agnostic, like the core connector be much more agnostic and be like an object that is going to be able to process updates from queues or from whatever communication that I'm going to design there, but usually are going to be queues. So we'll be more like standardize the messages of updates for all the data structures that we have in order to have this core connector very basic and very solid, well tested, and make that the implementations of the connectors are just files that can format updates from the APIs and format messages from the WebSocket channels. But it will be like much more decoupled architecture than the one that we have right now. And that will allow us to make the connectors much more configurable. Because right now it's like, I don't know, there are things like order updates that the base implementations loops through all the orders that are in the connector and sends a request for each order that you want. So there are exchanges like Binance that will allow you to do that because it's every 2 minutes that we are doing this process. But there are other exchanges that if you have $100, it's going to crash or it's going to be bothering you with rate limits. There are a lot of like nuances regarding to how you code the connector or of if the API of the connector is able to support the type of pressure that the Hummingbot connectors are really reliable are generating. And sometimes, usually, when you ask for the orders, you get the information of all the orders that are in the market, and then you can process and update all the orders together instead of doing a loop through all the orders and send a request for each order. So those type of things are the ones that this improvement will try to bring, plus the support of batch order placement for the connectors to reduce API calls in case that we are managing multiple connectors and so, plus upgrade on the libraries that we are using in Hummingbot, because based on some of the coupling with certain versions of the code base, we are losing like the advantage of using the validation of Pydantic 2.0 that all the core is in Rust and it's much more faster. And well, there are a lot of work regarding to the core of Hummingbot. So that is why this part of the year I'm going to try to focus and improve architecturally Hummingbot to have a more efficient bot. That at some point is something that I like to do and I want to do because makes sense to improve and make the bot more efficient. In the other hand, I think that as the bot is right now is usable, and you need to for example, if you're using an exchange like Hyperliquid, try to tweak it and try to be more adapted to the type of request or the type of restrictions that exchange has, or see how many pairs you can run without having issues or whatever. But the bot works really well. It's very solid. But these type of things will improve the usability of the library in other places. Plus, will make the bot faster and more reliable for running in long periods of time. Regarding to the repo Quants-Lab that is not in the roadmap, but as I mentioned, the roadmap is not static. The idea of the roadmap is okay. These are based on the experience of the past year of 2023 that we have. That we released a version of the dashboard. We included optimization. We did a lot of things. We found a few issues that were that the people didn't understand very well how it works and everything. So based on that, we say, okay, this is the roadmap that we saw, that we think that is going to be important for 2024. But as I mentioned, it's dynamic. So one of the things that is going to be included that wasn't included in this roadmap is the Quants-Lab repo. And why? Because I'm going to show you right now some of the use cases of this Quants-Lab repo. But as you can see, I already coded a few nice things here that will let you like analyze the market and so. But the most important thing is that we can analyze market data of exchanges at scale. What happens once you have a strategy? You would like to see which markets are attractive to trade. You would like to perform screeners like, okay, find me the markets that are having this volatility. Well, whatever. There are a lot of things that you can possibly look for when trying to spot markets. So, for example, in this example that I'm doing here, this class that is Cloud Data Source is using Hummingbot in the background and lets me get a lot of data. So, for example, the first thing that I would like to get, I will put a line here. The first thing that I would like to get is these trading pairs. So, see that these methods that I have here is like get trading rules. See that here, if I put trading rules, is a list of trading rules. If I access to one of these, trading rules. So this is a data structure that if I put data, actually in the data structures, you will see how it's a basic data structure, but there is a reason why. Now we'll show you with the candles. But see that the information of the trading rules I have for each trading pair, the mean order size, the max order size, the mean price increment, the mean base amount increment, well, all this information, mean notional size, all this stuff. So why this is important? Because when you are trying to design a strategy or try to generate an idea of what you want to start deploying, you need to know which is the minimum order amount for that market. You need to know which markets are available. You would like to filter, but some type of quote asset and so. So these are the type of functionalities that if we include this in the dashboard, or why I'm doing this is like in the dashboard we're very nosy. You need to code a UI specific to do certain thing and whatever. Here you can just use it from the code and based on that decide how you want to which markets are attractive for you and so. So see that this trading rules object that I mentioned that is an object, and with this data you can access to all the information that is here, but has some methods like for example this one, filter by quote asset. So if I put here filter by quote asset FDUSD, see that this is the output, and if we put that data here, it will only show all the pairs that all the trading rules that are in quote of FDUSD. If I want to see all the markets that are with USDT, I can see all the markets that are quoted in USDT. See that the next line I'm saying, okay, also give me the markets like filter by mean notional size. This means like I can trade only with $1, for example. Is like that is what it's giving us. And these markets see that the mean notional size is $1. So here I am filtering all the markets that are quoted in USDT, and I can enter with just $1. So it's like I can put a lot of orders because if I can enter with $5, I can put less orders with less amount of capital. So well, depending on what you are trying to do, right? But this type of objects lets you analyze the data very well. Let's say, or what I'm doing here. See that here I'm saying, okay, from all the trading rules, I want to filter the quote asset. I filter by notional size and get all the trading pairs. Why I want to do this is because later on, when I run this line, I want to get the candles for the last days. This club object that I created here that uses Hummingbot is like in the background uses the Hummingbot library to run all these things, is able to get the candles of the last days. So for this, I only need to pass the connector, the trading pair, the interval, the number of days, and well, with this gather, I'm getting all the information. I recommend to check a Twitter thread if you are interested in async programming that I show. I posted on Twitter, I think that was like 3 weeks ago, like what is the difference in performance on mainly on the time that you need to wait if you are doing this like synchronous against asynchronous. It's like as you can see, let me see how many are, but I think that I get like let's say len I downloaded 92 candles. See that I am getting 20 days, so it's like 20 days of 15 minutes of 94 candles. The time that cost to download all those candles was 2 seconds. So it's like you can do like analysis at scale with this stuff. It's like you can download a lot of data, play around with the data, and do whatever you want. It's very focused to data analysis and all that stuff. So well, see that here. I have the keys of all the candles that are like available here. So let's say that now if we access, let me show you this. If we access to candles, NFP, the first one, NFP, USDT, see that this object is also a data structure candles, right? It's here, like data structure, we have candles, trading rules. The idea of these objects that we have here is that they have natural functions that will help us doing things that we don't want to repeat code all the time. So for example, if I call just a method plot here, type candles, you will see that it's going to plot the OHLC directly. So, and also if you put like get figure or fig, you're going to get the figure of this, and then you can add traces to that figure in case that you want to add like Bollinger Bands, for example, just to put an example. And you can also put here like plot, and instead of plotting this, you can plot their returns. So the idea is that in your house, if you want to add a custom analysis on an OHLC, you can just add the method to the candle and enjoy the ability to have multiple graphs with just this type of sugar syntax that you can visualize what is happening, right? As I mentioned, we have a lot of candles. Then I added a few reports that I'm computing, like the volatility of all the markets that I'm interested, the average trading volume, giving a score, then filtering by a score, and at the end generating a config that I can just plug and play into the bot. So is this config, for example, I can just plug and play into the bot. So this is why I think that this repo will be very mainstream later on, because I think that Hummingbot, besides that it's used by non-technical people, the target audience is more for technical people, because you need to run it by yourself. You need to be able to read the logs, understand the logs, try to fix the bots if there is any issue. So it's something that requires a little bit of technical skills. And I think that this type of solution will let you get the most of the expertise that is required to run bots and do quant trading and analyze data scale without the need of coding fancy UIs or coding a lot of things in the dashboard, that you are more focused on building an intuitive UI instead of just experimenting and doing research. So that's basically all that I have for the second part of the year.
Thanks, Fede, for giving us an update. From my side, I think that I personally want to make sure that our DEX connectors and our DEX strategies are also updated as well. Because we did spend the first half of the year really focused on just getting dashboard out, focusing on order book exchanges and order book strategies. Personally, I'm getting more and more excited about what's going on in the realm of DEXs, especially on Solana. I want to make sure that on Hummingbot side are supporting what's happening and what's ways to basically make money by running bots and by setting positions and so forth that are not, I think, possible. Whereas before, we didn't have this like huge level of like retail trading volume on meme coins that made it profitable to be a DEX market maker. But now the situation is like completely the other way around, where you have lots of people who are just trading one coin for another, like incurring lots of slippage, and there's a lack of market makers, lack of liquidity providers serving all these people. So I think that if we do have the tools and the knowledge to be able to do market making, and I think that a lot of the things we're doing, probably running bots and on order book exchanges, is very transferable. I think the potential for reward is pretty high, because I think I was telling like Fede, we keep on telling our Botcamp students one thing, which is what is the main difference between like AMM DEX and an order book SEX? Like, what's the main difference? Anyone want to take a shot at the comments? Like the number one difference that I think is most important for market makers. Right. Well, so in my view, I think it's that on AMM, it's a different market, all kind of stuff. But the main difference is like the AMM is just an interface between the takers and the makers. So the fee, usually is just almost like a large chunk of that is actually paid to the LPs. So if you look at like most AMM dexes, something like 80 to 90%, sometimes 100% of the fees paid by the takers is actually goes to the LPs. Whereas on Binance, pretty much every single order book exchange, most of the fees paid by the takers go to the venue itself. In part because operating the venue takes time. It's a company. It's a platform. Someone needs to be in charge of listing assets and making sure that that there's no fraud risk, and making sure that there's all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of like that's kind of why order books came out first, because they're more manual. But I think in some ways, as an LP, I don't mind DEXs if I can get my arms around it, because it's kind of like whether I take my capital and run bots on an order book exchange, which is I think is very valid, which is I think which we're all doing, to taking that same capital and placing an LP, just providing liquidity on a DEX. I'm happy to kind of like be indifferent in terms of use of capital if I get paid in one versus paying in another. So anyway, but I think overall I would say there's actually a lot of fertile territory for like the white space in between, and that's kind of what we've been doing with like our AMM arbitrage strategy. But I think now it's actually now because of the proliferation of retail activity on Solana in particular, but also on Base as well as Arbitrum. I think it's a great time to start building out some of our LP focused strategies. So we actually tried taking a stab at this initially with the V1 strategy, which is called Uni V3 LP. So this is something that Victor and I spent a lot of time on this, a couple of years ago when Uniswap came out. But unfortunately, the reality is, I would say it's kind of like it's just hard to experiment on Uniswap V3 because all the liquidity is on mainnet. Everything else, and now there's okay on rollup, but before, before a year ago, it was like a graveyard on all the rollups. So all the liquidity, all the volume was on mainnet, but like doing anything would cost a minimum of $20. So it's kind of like even actually creating a position was worse. Creating like an LP position would cost over $100 in gas, and so it was just really hard to like do any type of like experimentation that made it worthwhile. So given the lack of like organic trading volume, and I think now it's actually flipped the other way around, where now it's like on Solana, it costs like less than a cent to do anything. Creating a position, adding liquidity, removing liquidity, harvesting fees, like everything is pretty much less than a cent in normal times in terms of transaction fees. Meanwhile, there's this ton of like pools with like very few liquidity providers. Now some of these pools are like pretty degen, but if you can get your arms down the risk, the same stuff we're doing, running bots on I don't know, pay or anything out there. Anyway, so overall, what I'm saying is, I think there's a lot of fertile territory in creating kind of some automation around setting these positions, removing fees. We're doing the calculating using exchange prices to figure out even where to set these ranges. So that's why I think I personally want to spend a lot of like the last half of the year just trying to make sure our DEX integrations and our DEX strategies match what we've already shipped the dashboard and with the V2 framework. So sorry for the segue, but I think that because I think the DEX has always been really near and dear to my heart, and so I'm actually really glad to see the market really taking off the way that it has over the past few months. Fede, do you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I want to add more like regarding the questions that are in the chat that they were discussing about orchestration, and I would like to add that the most important thing that is like the dashboard is cool, it's really cool, but the dashboard is like the 10% of the development or the usability. Is like the utility is like 10% of the dashboard. The most important thing is the backend API, because it's a service that lets you orchestrate everything from your bot operations. So in the backend API, you have information of your active bots, you have information of which controllers are in each bot running, which is the P&L of each of the controllers that are running. You can stop a controller if you want. You can restart a controller. You can stop a bot entirely. You can deploy a new bot. So my point here is, don't think that the dashboard is the only way to start and stop bots. Yeah, you can do it from the deploy. You can see that you can stop controllers that are not running well. You can restart them all from the dashboard, but you can do it from any program. So the question about how will cost to use GPT like this is like, it's going to be more like for each request that you need, but this can be very suitable for open source models like Llama 3.1 and so, because we are going to only do like function calling, because we already have the API of the backend API that has a route for create a bot or has a route to get the stats of the bot. So it's something really easy for an open source model to do. But you can do it with AI, you can do it with a screener, you can do it with the Quants-Lab repo that I just showed. It's like from the Quants-Lab repo that I just showed right now, I can just add a method that is upload this config to the Backend API and deploy a bot with these 3 configs. And the Backend API will be able to deploy that bot and then give me the updates of how my bots are doing. And I just do it from a notebook. I can see, okay, these are the bots that are running, and this is the PNL. And I can say, okay, stop these bots and manage all of them from the notebook. That is why what I'm trying to transmit is like analyze the backend API and see all the things that are available for you there, because you will probably get surprised on which are the or how you can integrate it with multiple solutions that you would like to build. My next step here on the screeners part and everything is going to be to code a screener, but also like based on Quants-Lab, that based on the screener that will run, I don't know, every 4 hours, we're going to see which are the current bots that are running, which is the PNL of the current bots, see if the screener is saying that I need to exit that market or I need to continue in that market, stop the markets that the screener is telling me this market is not going to this direction anymore, start new markets that the screener think that is doing, and that will allow me to have a continuous automated operations of deploying and stopping bots based on that. So my point here is like, it's very free for anyone to build like random and crazy things on top of this new architecture design where you can orchestrate multiple bots. So feel free to experiment and code whatever you want.
Thanks, Fede. We're actually going to do a community call a little bit less often. It's actually more efficient for us to package all the updates into like a release, and it doesn't have to be once a month. It could be like once every 2 months. At the very least, once every quarter, but we want to make sure we don't spend our QA team's time on just constantly testing a staging branch. Before we were like doing 1 week of staging every month, so it's almost like 1 week of the month. Our QA team was just busy just testing the same code that they've been testing for a while. So I think having a longer delay time between releases, I think, creates a more efficient process for us, especially now that we're making changes to lots of different repos with each release. So it's more important than ever to ensure that they all work together, that we're actually shipping a clean version of the library. And another factor is that we'll be maintaining different Docker images for one for DYDX specifically, because there's a conflict between the library used by DYDX and the one used by Injective. So because of that, there's a bit more complexity in our deployment process. So I think at least for now, I believe we'll probably try to do something like a one release every 2 months cadence. But I think it kind of depends also on like hot fixes as well as how much we have to update in each release. So one question. So we do plan on doing at least one more Botcamp cohort later on this year. It will likely start in probably at the beginning of November. But we'll probably try to get a registration page out for that, hopefully in the next 1 or 2 weeks. The current cohort that we just recently started, I think is going well because we have like a good number of people. I think there's about 33 people actually in this current cohort, and I think we found that I think this is actually a good number. When we first started, it was actually a bit small. We actually don't want every cohort to be too big because I think there's value in having like a personal connection with each participant and trying to make sure that if someone wants to build a custom strategy, that we have the space to help them build that strategy. So overall, we definitely want to keep the number of participants definitely under 50 for the time being. But I think we're seeing that even with 30 plus people, we can manage it. In addition, I think we actually might start recruiting mentors from the community to try to help us scale that Botcamp a bit more, because we do find that the more people there are in the cohort, the more organic kind of like peer-to-peer learning that exists. But by trying to having a minimum number of people who are kind of like as part of the core engineering team, it allows us to offer more bounties to the community. So it kind of always forces us to kind of give the work of maintaining different exchanges, fixing bugs, even adding documentation, and trying to rely as much as possible on the community to do that instead of hiring in-house people full time. So basically, hopefully I think that we found over time that that's going to allow us to be sustainable because now that's kind of why we maintain an active bounties board of requests, and we're kind of consistently working with members of the community that want to do stuff that just help us out, like especially on areas like documentation. For example, we recently had someone named Patrick earn a documentation bounty because he added a number of blog posts and other documentation regarding how the V2 framework works. So there's active PR for that. We'll get that merged in before the next release. But I think for those of you who are trying to code a custom controller, I think his examples should make it a lot easier to do so. Similarly, I think we always need more people in our Discord support program. So if you go to that Discord channel, you should see the sign-up form. But this is something where we give out essentially monthly HBot tokens to people who help answer questions from the community and support general and other channels. So this is something that we as we participate in as part of Foundation as third-party members because the support is also something that we used to hire. We used to have like a support team, but then we found that it's actually much more kind of efficient and just better for the community if we try to give that role to the community instead of trying to kind of in-house that function ourselves. So if you're interested in just helping out Hummingbot, I think what we especially need are people who are a bit knowledgeable about the development side of things, to let's say answering questions about how the V2 framework works, how executors differ from let's say controllers, for example. So we do try to give higher bonus rates for answers that are kind of like more that pertain to newer features. So that's why sometimes when we see an answer, there's like a 1 or 2 or 3 below that answer. That's because that person is earning some type of HBot reward, and the number below it indicates kind of how much they earned. So I hope that gives an overview of the kind of where we are from a project perspective. Overall, I just want to thank everyone, both in the Discord audience and those people who are watching Discord, for supporting us. Because overall, I think the way Fede and I look at it is that we're an open source project first and foremost. So our first mission is to provide a valuable resource that anyone to just build on top of it and use it for however they want. And then obviously by using the product ourselves and by teaching people how to use it through Botcamp, I think we can build a good profitable business that helps us live and also supports our team as well as Foundation. But overall, it's kind of like overall the model. I think more and more it seems like it's working. But overall, it's working. I think because we found that it's really being supported by the community. So hopefully, by doing these kind of events, we can grow the events, grow the community even a bit more. Try to really meet you guys in person. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us on Discord or wherever if you're interested in meeting up in Singapore or in Buenos Aires, and we'll try to organize something and get everyone together. All right. Well, it's been great. I'll see you at the hopefully in person or at the next community call. Bye, everyone.